when we talk about energy again, the impact of electrifying the car park in a country like Germany is enormous. You know, what you see on this chart is that we import at 2009, we imported about 50 billion euros of oil. 50 billion euros of oil at $100 per barrel. And of this 50 plus billion, about 30 billion is used for driving cars and light trucks. And if you then analyze how these cars that we have in Germany, the 45 million cars, are really used, you come to the conclusion that already today, 70% of all kilometers driven could be driven electric, you know, because they are short trips, they are inner city trips, so range is not an issue. So 70% of all driven kilometers could be driven electric today. And this means that of this 30 billion of oil imports, 21 billion could be substituted with electric energy. And the additional cost for producing this electric energy in Germany at current generation mix would be something of around 2 billion. So it's a fraction, it's only 10%. And in addition to that, we don't have to import it. You know, we can produce it here. We can produce it with, hopefully in the future, without using any fossil fuels or other raw materials. And the other impact is that, you know, we reduce local emissions significantly. You know, 70% less local NOx, for example, is another advantage. So keeping this in mind, the economic impact is really enormous. And this is why, again, with the exception of Germany, many economies in the world have understood that, and they are promoting e-mobility. And they are promoting it not only for climate reasons, they are promoting it for the most part, to gain early mover advantages for their local industry. And if you look at this, the subsidies that you can get in the US, for example, or in Europe, you see that the first generation of cars that you can buy are already competitive cost-wise. You know, if you register a Nissan Leaf in California, it's at the same price tag after subsidies than a VW Golf, and you drive it already for 5 cents less per kilometer, or per mile, I should say. In Europe, it's a little different, but the driving costs are already at the same level. So, what will happen next? We believe that electrification of the powertrain in its different shapes or form will stay for good. And lithium-ion batteries will be the key technology for the foreseeable future. The first serious products are coming to market now. Mass production is starting now, but unfortunately mostly not in Europe. This mass production will drive down the cost of the batteries and thereby the cost of the overall e-vehicles significantly. And we think that within the next 5 years, automotive lithium-ion batteries will become mass products, and in 10 years from now, a commodity like any other component that you have in a car today. The global race is on. It's really a global competition of regions. And the European market is becoming increasingly attractive. However, we don't have a real footprint yet for battery production in Europe. And it's highly needed to ensure our global competitiveness and to make sure that we don't get too dependent on imports from Asia and potentially from the US, because the component is a critical one for the first 2 to 3 generations of e-cars. Thank you very much.
So do we have a question for Gregor?
Mr. Matthies, thank you very much for your excellent presentation. Have you heard of Coda Automotive in Los Angeles?
Coda?
Yes.
No, unfortunately not.
It's one of the most ambitious car manufacturers. It's a Chinese-American joint venture, and they are developing an e-car. So I was a little confused that I didn't find this in your presentation. It's a very, very big venture, and they have released their car already. CodaAutomotive.com.
Yeah, there are quite a number of startups.
It's not a startup. It's really far away from a startup.
No, I mean startup in terms of newcomers coming to the industry. We also analyzed a little bit the threat of newcomers, you know, the Teslas and Fiskas of the world. But what we found in our research is that most of these companies, they underestimate what it means to not only develop and produce a car, but also to provide the full range of services downstream, meaning distribution, after sales, parts supply, and so on. So it is something that will be important for innovation in the entire industry. Tesla was critical for bringing the whole industry into movement, but these companies we don't think will be the winners in this new technology. We think that the established OEMs will ultimately prevail. But I'm not a, who knows?
Any other question?
As we can read in the papers, China is accessing the rare earth metals that are needed for batteries. So, how are we now exchanging our dependency from oil-producing countries towards the countries that have these rare metals?
Yeah, I mean, excellent question. The raw earth or raw earths are primarily used for the electric motors, not for the batteries. But still, it's a very critical component. And it's not the case that all of these rare earths are in China. But currently, the production is for more than 90% in China, because it is environmentally very unfriendly, to say the least, to explore these rare earths. But you find them also in Europe, you find them in California, you find them in all kinds of places in the world, but they're not explored there. I think it is something that we have to look into, and we have to make sure that there are certain relationships that secure the supply. And I think in the long run, China cannot afford to monopolize the supply or limit the supply. I think they are trying to do that right now because they want to leapfrog a little bit the competition with regards to this new technology, because they know that they cannot catch up in the ICE. They will never be able to catch up 100 years of development that we have done in Europe and in the US, but this is new technology, and so they try to leapfrog. But in the long run, I think there will be normal supply relationships, because it's just one component of the overall, let's say, global trade that's happening between China, the US, and Europe. And lithium that you need for the batteries right now is in South America primarily. Again, China is trying to get their hands on these mines, but you can recycle the lithium for more than 90%, and so there are ways to reduce the dependency. But it's something that you have to look into, absolutely.
All right.
I think I overstayed my welcome.
Okay, thank you very much again to Gregor.